In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emmanuel Rose.
Welcome to this edition of Marketing in the Age of AI. I am Emmanuel Rose, and today we're going to talk with Hunter Jensen, who is a dynamic force in the marketing and the coding landscape. Hunter is known for his innovative strategies that bridge the gap between technology and authentic engagement. With a wealth of experience, he has helped numerous brands navigate the complexity of digital marketing, ensuring they stand out in the ever more crowded marketplace. In this episode, Hunter will share his insights on leveraging AI to enhance your marketing efforts and maybe even help you think about how you're going to design your next user interface. Hunter, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
What is going on in the world of Hunter Jensen in San Diego right now?
So much. Things are transforming so rapidly that it's pretty hard to even feel like I'm keeping up to date, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm reading probably an hour or two a day just so I can feel like I know what's going on. And I still kind of feel like I don't know what's going on to a certain extent.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's the interesting thing about what we got here, right? Is that here we are, you're reading an hour a day, trying to keep up with all these guys that are even farther out doing stuff and figuring it out. The machines are helping them figure out what's next. And then we have clients, some of whom not even using ChatGPT to write an email yet, right? And so the disparity is at this point miles wide in between those two people.
It is absolutely massive. We're seeing the entire spectrum. The good news is it's been a while since I met anyone that said, "What is ChatGPT?"
That's true. Yeah.
I think we've finally gotten to the point. I threw my parents a 50th wedding anniversary a couple weeks ago, and one of their friends in his late 70s pulled me aside afterwards and said, "Hey, can you get me set up with this ChatGPT on my phone? I keep hearing all about it, and I want to make sure I'm using it correctly." So it has officially, we have officially hit critical mass. Everyone's aware of what's happening to a certain degree or another. Whether or not they're using it, that still has a pretty wide spectrum, like you mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. So now you've been in digital design and software design for a while now, couple decades.
Correct.
And just give me the kind of laundry list of the tools that you use in your professional life, not client facing, but hunter facing.
Oh yeah. So, I am using all of the large language models basically for different use cases. I use Perplexity for search. I like Claude right now for kind of basic code generation if I need to have a little side project. I still use ChatGPT for like my day-to-day, but I've started oftentimes, this is one of the really interesting things about what's happening right now is that Google.com has been the front door of the internet.
Yeah.
Since I can remember, since early 2000s, right?
Sure.
All of a sudden, it is not that for a lot of people. If I'm searching, it's Perplexity now.
Right. Yeah.
And think about how fundamentally that's changing how people engage on the internet. It's no longer the front door. And so now we have to, and it creates a bit of a mental load for me personally, thinking about, like, it used to be such a reflex, just go to Google.
Google it. Yeah. Yeah.
And now there's like some thought that has to go into, well, where am I going to right?
I love that you're putting language to this, because I have been experiencing this too.
and it's annoying, right? I don't want to have to think, but to get the most out of what I'm trying to accomplish, I do have to think about it. Now, fast forward a few more years, and I think that's going away. And the reason I think that's going away is, everybody's working towards, her or
an assistant, right?
Right. A Jarvis from Iron Man, right? Your AI personal assistant. And I think they're going to know where to look for whatever it is that I need. But we're missing that intermediate layer right now. We have to make these choices for ourselves currently. But so I don't think it's going to last very long.
I love that, though. I love that because, you're right. We got to figure out, what am I trying to do? And then where am I going to go and log in? But there's a really smart company called HyperDart, which is kind of a new age Google, I would say. It's kind of like a blend of a social media platform, an LLM, and a Google. And it's super interactive between the brands, the people, or the content creators, the people, and what they're trying to find. So that's a middleware that you're describing. There's also a tool called Webinoid, which is this assistant that you're talking about, that you just speak to, and it goes and does the Perplexity things and shops around for you. But you were still a little bit of time in between. But I think that's an interesting middleware, and you could spool that up in a weekend and get it on online, which would be these API tokens, and you just say, hey Hunter Jensen, my digital assistant, I want to write a piece of copy, and the digital assistant, you like Claude for copywriting, and you Perplexity to go and buy airplane tickets to go to the Aruba, and you could spin that up pretty quick, Hunter.
Yeah, and so you touched on something that I've been writing about recently, and I call it the weekend problem. And so I'll give you the backstory on it. I needed a new headshot for my LinkedIn. I was without a beard, and I found that people were like not recognizing me when they saw me in person because it's such a drastic difference.
I believe it.
So this was maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I said, okay, I need a new headshot. What did I used to do? I used to hire a photographer, and I'd go to their studio and I'd put on my suit, and it was, and I'd sit on the stool with like one foot on the ground and do different angles. And, it was generally just something I did not enjoy. And it cost $200 probably.
Yeah. Right.
And I said, okay, well, we're in a new age now. I am going to get a headshot made by AI. And I found this tool. I think it was called AIheadshots.com.
How'd you find it? That's my first question. How did you find it?
So keep in mind, this was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So it took some Googling
to find
it.
How old is that?
I had not crossed over fully yet. Or really, I should say I had not broken that habit yet, because I was aware of it well before I managed to break the habit of it. So anyway, I sign up, and it's $20, and they say you can wear whatever you want and just take a bunch of selfies, different backgrounds and this and that. And it created maybe 30 or 40 images, and some of them I had 3 arms, and some of them I was missing teeth and all of that back when image generation was really bad. But there was a few that were really good.
Right.
And I picked it, and I paid my $20 and put it up on my LinkedIn. It's still there today if you want to check it out.
Awesome.
And I thought, as a lifelong entrepreneur that started and been involved in dozens of startups over the years, I thought, well, that's a neat little business, right? Because there's probably nobody works there. It's probably a single person that there it is. That's I don't own that suit. If you can.
That is too funny. I love it.
Looks like and Yeah. So I was like, well, that's a neat little business. And then I thought about it more and I realized, well, no, it's not, because I could build that in a weekend.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
All these LLM wrappers are so easy to build that this old mindset of like the SaaS playbook, you know, where you have your idea and you raise your money and you go in stealth mode and you build for 9 or 12 months and then you launch and you're first to market, and that's a huge advantage.
Right.
Your first mover advantage, right?
Yeah.
That is gone. It doesn't take 9 months to build almost anything anymore, right?
No, you just go to Lovable and you put in a little prompt in a Lovable and it spits it out, and then you take that code to Claude, and then you got the whole deal, right?
And there you go. And you still have to be skilled to stitch it all together.
Sure.
These tools are not great at like last mile kind of stuff, right?
That.
Like, getting your database connected and getting hosting set up and getting your domain. Like, there's still like pieces where you have to know what you're doing, but it doesn't take 9 months anymore. And so, that competitive advantage is largely gone.
Yeah.
And, so you start thinking about, well, okay, how do I build a new, startup if SaaS is dead? Like, what is the new model? And, one of the things that I think
that's a great question.
Yeah. Right. And one of the answers to that is, if I was like starting a new company right now, I would be out there looking for a very robust proprietary data set that some old business is not leveraging, and either buy it or license it so that I can do something that not everybody else can do in a weekend, because I have a unique data set, right? There's tons of businesses out there that aren't doing anything with their data. They don't know how. It's not part of their strategy. But if you look at it from a completely different angle, you could probably leverage it into something powerful. That, to me, like a proprietary data set, is where I would try to find like a bit of a competitive moat, because timing doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Well, and so I would just take that and twist it a little bit, and I'd say super niche-y software, right?
Yep.
So that's the other spot where it hasn't already been baked in to whatever the other software you're using, Zoho or Zoom. So you've got this super, like I'm stitching together right now my content marketing process, right? So I go from one video, build a brand book, and then it goes all the way through and it spits out a complete campaign. And then all I need is the connector to the services to release the marketing campaign, right? So right now that hasn't existed. There's not anything that does all that in one push. In 2 weeks when I'm done with it, there'll be 6 other guys that have finished it also, and then it'll all get baked into Go High Level, right? So it's super niche-y, and then very short windows of viability.
Right. And the windows of viability have shrunken just so dramatically, because there's also the looming kind of threat that Google or Microsoft rolls out something that solves this problem, right? Every business I've talked to in the last 5 years is either on Microsoft or on Google for their office productivity suite, right?
Yeah.
You got to have your email through something. You got to have a document editor, and those are basically the only two. And so they're already there. They're already in all these businesses. And so, when we start talking about like deploying custom AI solutions for clients, one of the questions that we often ask is, well, what's the likelihood that this is just going to roll out in G Suite in the next 6 months?
Yep.
And the answer is pretty high, actually. Like, they probably will, because this feels like a very general use case and a very obvious use case, and they just haven't gotten to it yet.
Right.
So, I've straight up told potential clients to not move forward, because we're going to build something that you very likely won't need by the time we're done building it.
Yeah, and so there's zero ROI on it because it's going to be baked in already. Yeah.
Exactly. So you have to find ways to like stay relevant
Well, I love that. So tell me about a recent project that you've had that has been interesting, and we'll withhold the names to save the innocent and all that stuff. But What? Give us a success story on a deployment or a custom creation.
Yeah. So I am seeing a trend. And my company, primarily we do custom software development, right? Where we do a lot of marketing, both internally and supporting our clients from a technical perspective in marketing, but primarily we're a custom software shop. And what does that mean? It means for the last 20 years, I've been in the business of selling development hours, selling engineering hours.
Yeah, right.
What used to take 300 now might take 10.
And you have no more junior developers.
And there's no junior developers. You don't need junior developers, but how in the world do you get senior developers when there's no pipeline of junior developers? They don't appear out of thin air, right?
Amazing. Yeah.
So, this is both an exciting time while also an existential threat to my business. Yeah. Interestingly, attorneys have the same problem. Anybody that's like in the business of billing hours this is like causing a really scary problem. So as that's happening, one of the trends I'm seeing, one of the directions I'm taking my business, is that there is a large segment of the business world right now that can't use ChatGPT or other third-party large language models.
Security issues, right?
Correct. Okay. Security issues. And newsflash, your employees are doing it anyway. If you're not giving them
it's against the rules, though.
Oh, right. I know it's in the employee handbook, but trust me, they're leaking confidential information.
For sure.
And so we have built a private, secure, on-premise or like on-client cloud hosted and open source to the extent that you can customize it in any way you want.
Right.
Large language model plus a RAG database.
Yep. What's RAG for people who are listening?
Retrieval augmented generation is RAG. RAG database, or otherwise known as a vector database. And there's a little difference between those two for the technical people. I know that. I'm just not going to get into it right now. Is a really good way of storing and searching through documents.
Gotcha.
And when you combine these things and you integrate with all of their proprietary data sources, their document management, maybe they have a relational database, maybe they have a HubSpot instance. When you connect all these things together on this private, secure, customizable assistant and agent interface.
Yep.
When you're let's say you're a IP law firm, right? Yep. You cannot take client inventions and upload them into ChatGPT to ask how to write the patent application. But you could do that with this type of internal system. And so, in fact, a law firm came to us and asked us to build them one custom just for them. And we said, well, hang on. I'm reading about how Goldman Sachs just rolled out GSAI, and Cisco rolled one out, and BAE rolled one out, and JP Morgan's got one now. And I realized that all the big boys are building these because they know that they need them.
Yeah.
But middle market companies can't afford to build that.
Right.
It's too expensive. And so I said to the law firm, well, hang on, I will do this at a fraction of the cost if we can keep the intellectual property here and go out and sell that. And so we're doing just that. But I see a real trend right now in the need for companies that have like confidential proprietary data that are kind of feel like they're getting left behind. Because everybody, all the content creators, they don't care. They'll use Midjourney or ChatGPT or DALL-E or whatever they want, right? But when you need inputs and the inputs are confidential, you need a system. And if you don't provide your employees a system like this, like I said, they're just going to use GPT anyway.
Right.
And that's a really big risk for your company, right?
Yeah, you've lost control for sure.
And so that's what we've been deploying these.
I love it.
Seeing a lot of interest. Pharmaceutical, defense contracting, investment banking. I've been seeing a lot of interested businesses in a bunch of different verticals in a tool like that can kind of connect to all their data sources and all their systems and be an assistant and an agent.
I love it. I think that's a super important niche to fill. So good on you for figuring that out.
Yeah, until, and here I am telling everybody about it while we're still building it. And so but it's the kind of thing that there's, the thing that's important, I think, is that it needs to be custom for a business. So businesses are like snowflakes. They all have their weird legacy data sources and their, proprietary processes and standard operating procedures and all the rest of it. And so it needs to be custom. And that's where that's what positions us for this, is like we can customize because we're a software development shop.
Yeah, right. And you know how to build an API for a piece of software that doesn't have one and connect everything up. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the most interesting thing we're working on right now, and a trend in the space, and also like the reason I mentioned the existential threat to my business, it's a path forward, right?
Yeah,
as the business of selling engineering hours is becoming very quickly obsolete. I've been tracking this one kind of line in the sand as a means of trying to figure out where we are in the progression. And so when we build software, we design it first, right? And we have a UI UX team, and they use a tool called Figma, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and a lot of your listeners are too. And I have been testing out new tools to convert Figma into code.
Okay.
That seemed to me like a very obvious use case. Like back-end code is very complicated, and there's a lot. Front end is going to happen first, and I must have tried a dozen of these things, and they all stunk in one way or another. They did not get the job done, and the amount of wrangling you had to do with the code that was generated was just not worth the effort. We'll just have a developer do it.
Just start from the ground up. Yeah.
Right. And that kept happening for over a year and a half. I've been testing out these tools. I look at the like Y Combinators and those folks, and I become beta early like design partner beta tester. And then about a month ago, found one that just worked. Got us 99% of the way there.
Wow.
And then the fixes we needed, we were able to do those with natural language too. We didn't have to edit any of the code.
Amazing.
It pumped out perfect React, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
Yeah. And
so that to me was like, boom, we are not waiting for this. We are officially here.
Yeah.
And so whatever you need to do to keep your, push your business forward, you don't have to pay for front end development anymore. Like it's gone down to, a tiny percentage of what it used to be.
Yeah. And if we think about it from the business perspective, which is there's no reason now that I can't get all of my software to talk to each other, to interact, to share data, to fulfill my dashboards for business intelligence. So I have what I need in order to run the business without paying somebody to click around and connect CSVs and blah, blah, blah. Right. I mean, we're in that zone now where it's cost effective to connect everything inside the business. So
one of the biggest dramatic changes that I think people intuitively might know this, but is that so many businesses rely on documents, on Word documents and PDFs and things of that nature. Like that's how businesses were run for many, many decades.
Yep.
And they still are today. And one of the biggest breakthroughs is being able to understand documents, understand PDFs, and extract information. Yep. Like I came up as a developer, right? I started off as a web developer, and if you said to me, I need to be able to extract one piece of data from this 10-page PDF, I would say, okay, that's going to take me a few weeks to write the code for that. And then if they said, but it's scanned, like in a scanner,
right? And
I'd say, can't do it.
It's a flat file, right?
Yeah. Or the files are in varying formats. Okay, then multiply that 100 hours, that 3 weeks times however many formats there are.
Yeah,
literally. And now it is so simple to do. I mean, it's trivial to do something like that. And so it used to be that a business owner would say, well, it's just more cost effective to pay somebody to do this than to build and maintain the software that could automate it.
Yep.
And that's no longer true. As of, early 2023, right? When LLMs really started to hit the scene. And there's so many traditional businesses out there that maybe don't understand that yet. Like, I was talking to an escrow company recently, and their job is pushing paper to
paperwork. Yeah, it's like this
paperwork, man. It's your title insurance, and it's your proof of this, and your inspection report, and that's got to go over here, and all the numbers need to add up, and it's like, if you were building an escrow company from the ground up, it would be 98% AI. Right.
Yeah. And then you're going to get leapfrogged. I mean, that's what's really happening here, is that the startups are going to be way more efficient and cost effective than the legacy businesses.
That's right. And that's a whole other trend that is really interesting right now. In that, for a long time, the entrenched SaaS products, it was like impenetrable. Like, good luck going up against Salesforce, right? With your new CRM. Ain't going to happen. Hundreds, thousands of companies tried. Nobody really did it, right?
Right.
And these days, the kind of entrenched old, legacy SaaS platforms have so much technical debt that for them to like incorporate this stuff, they just bolt it on to their existing infrastructure, where the companies that are reimagined from the ground up are going to be so much better. Like a good example is, I was recently demoing, I won't use their name, but it's a phone tree system. Press 1 for this and press 3 for that, right?
Yep.
And it was one of the majors that have been around since landlines and all of it. And they said, "Well, we have AI now." I said, "Great, because we should be able to have a customer support agent that can interact with somebody that calls in, that is trained on previous calls and training materials, and can provide customer support via voice." I know, as a very technical person, that is extremely possible. And when I demoed their tool and they said, "Here's our AI," it was a natural language interface to design the phone tree. To like space the boxes for this would be one and this would be
that one got blown up in committee.
Oh, guys, you are missing this completely.
Right.
But that's, we're seeing that all across the board, like the point you made. Like, these big software, they're not nimble enough to kind of redo everything from the ground up. They've got customers that are expecting it to work and all the rest of it, but these startups are just going to leapfrog.
Yeah.
Because of the completely new way of building software.
That's interesting. I think it's kind of makes me think like it would be incumbent upon these entrenched businesses to just set aside 5% of their gross revs. Just say, we need to spin off a startup that's a clone of ourselves, and they're going to hire you and me to spin it up and get it running in 45 days. Right.
Right. Like, build a competitor.
Yeah. We're funding our competitor,
but you only get like one engineer.
Yeah.
Right. and like product people, and see what we can do. And like, how long would it take them to overtake? Like, not that long.
Right? No, like you're just talking about with that title company. I mean, you and I could get that done in 15 days. I would have the voice AI would be the first thing we could install. I mean, that's the funniest part of it. Right. I could do that tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. And so it is an interesting time in that the legacy SaaS is going to be challenged in a way that they have not been since very early days. Now, the new entrenched are the foundational models, the OpenAIs, the Anthropics of the world. Yeah. And the reason is the just sheer tremendous amount of money that it takes for them to create these foundational models.
Well, it's always the second wave that makes the money. We've seen this before a lot in tech, right? Not necessarily the groundbreakers.
Yeah, not necessarily. But I think companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and those are kind of poised to be the next Google and Microsoft to a certain extent. They are going to be the foundation of the application layer. Right. And there's a lot of money to be made in the application layer, and that is not a done deal. And if you find your niche or you find your proprietary data source or what have you, there's still a lot to be done there. But you'd have to be some sort of brilliant, PhD AI research mind to go out and convince, the money to, hey, I need, however many hundreds of millions of dollars to go up against OpenAI right now.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be a very, very tough sell. So I think they are pretty safe. And there's competition, which is great. It's not 2, it's 5 or 8 or however, right?
Yep.
And that's good for us because that creates a race to the bottom. That means they're going to focus on efficiency. They're going to focus on lowering costs. They're going to focus on quality. They're going to focus on safety. And I see it going the way of how Web 2.0 worked, right? They're going to specialize at some point. One's going to be killer in health and science, and that is the go-to foundational, right?
Yep.
One's going to be the code generating model that everybody uses, right? Just like now we had Meta, the social network, we have Amazon, the shopping site, Google, the search site. Like, I think we're going to see something similar with this next round of, Web 4 or whatever you want to call it.
I love it. Hunter, I love your energy. I love your bright mind, and I appreciate the work that you're doing. I hope you let me invite you on again in about 90 days and we see what the heck has changed in 90 days.
And all the things I got wrong.
Well, I hope the new product is right. That's what I'm hoping for, because I don't want you out on the street corners in La Jolla begging for change.
Neither does my wife.
No, honestly, really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for that to happen?
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. You don't need to be a potential client to reach out to me. Please, I will respond to you. You can email me directly, hunter@barefootsolutions.com. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, so you can hit me up there or come to our website, barefootsolutions.com. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for having me on. This was a treat.
All right. Well, I really enjoyed it. Hang on for me while I close this down, and we'll say goodbye.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I love it. Big takeaway is make sure that you're building a secure system for your employees to work on an LLM and not share your proprietary data with the world, because it's not just something that's going to impact your competitive nature. It will also potentially impact your regulatory commitments. So make sure you check in with Hunter with a flow chart of what your processes are and how he might be able to help you. I hope that you take some time to check out there's an AI for that.com and find some tools to make your work life easier and free up some time to spend with your friends, your family, and get outside and go for a walk in clean, fresh air. It's Emmanuel Rose, Marketing in the Age of AI.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emmanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.